Okay, yes. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the regular open meeting of the Suez Town Council, May 14th, 2024 at 2 p.m. in council chambers. First off, I will check to see are there any late items. Mrs.
No, Your Honor.
Because it's been included in here.
Yes.
Okay. So could we have a motion, please, that the regular open meeting of May the 14th be approved, the agenda? Thank you, Councillor King, Councillor Chong, all in favor. Thank you. And the adoption of some minutes, the parcel roll, tax roll review minutes from April the 23rd, and the regular open minutes from April the 23rd. We have a motion on that, please. Councillor Bennett, Councillor Federico, all in favor. Thank you. And next is the financial 2023 financial statements from the town of Vesuvius and the Sun Bowl Arena. So could we have a report from our financial services, please, Mr. Zackel?
Thank you, Member Cordoff. So we have the 2023 financial statements for the town of Vesuvius and Sun Bowl Arena. The recommendation for council will be that the council approves the 2023 audited financial statements for the town of Vesuvius and Sun Bowl Arena as presented. Jeff Percival from MMP is going to provide the audit opinion for both financial statements, and I'll speak to the some of the highlights from the statements. So at this point, I'll pass it to Jeff for the audit opinion.
Thank you.
All right, we have the financial statements for the town of Vesuvius and Sun Bowl Arena, which comprise the statements of financial position at December 31st, 2023, the statement of operations and accumulated surplus, changes in net financial assets, cash flows, and the related schedules for the year that ended, and notes to the financial statements, including a summary of significant accounting policies. In our opinion, the accompanying financial statements, both sets present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the municipality and the arena as at December 31st, 2023, and the results of their operations, changes in net financial assets, and cash flows for the year that ended in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards.
Thank you very much. So, council, we need a motion, please, that the council approves the sorry, Mr. Zackel.
Thank you. I'll just speak to some of the highlights before council.
Thank you.
So these financial statements reflected show a continued improvement in financial position for the town of Vesuvius. 2023, we had cash surplus in our general fund of $1,424,128. Sewer fund $187,587. Water fund $293,326. Our net financial assets, which is net debt, the town's position increased by $1,021,236, bringing the net financial asset balance to $11,508,918. 2023. Under reserves, funds held in reserves total $24,837,034 compared to $23,789,050 in 2022. Our debt, outstanding debt, including equipment financing, increased in 2023 by $32,336 for a total debt balance of $10,495,195. And under tangible capital assets, our tangible capital asset net book value was $82,627,902 for 2023. Compared to $79,607,608 in 2022. Our asset retirement obligation for the landfill under PSAP 3280 is $620,895, and our asset retirement obligation for buildings is $225,461. Under the cemetery care fund increased by $2,026 in 2023 for a balance of $110,181. Under the Sun Bowl, it showed a surplus from the town's perspective as $40,035 for 2023. And at this point, I will pass it back to council for their consideration for full statements.
Thank you very much. So we need a motion to approve the financial statements for the town and the Sun Bowl as presented. And if there are any questions, that can certainly be asked as well. Is there someone on council who would like to move the approval? Councillor Federica, Councillor Bennett. Any questions, any concerns that we need to ask? All right, call the question. All in favor? Thank you very much. That's done. Okay. Thank you very much, our auditor. Okay, next is water matters, the town of Asturias Water Regulations and Rates Amendment bylaw number 138801. Mr. Zacco, do you want to give a verbal report on this before we adopt it?
Yes, so this bylaw received first three readings on the 26th day of March 2024. Received inspector municipalities approval on 19th of April, and now it's before council for adoption.
Thank you very much. Council, what's your pleasure, please? If we have a motion, please, to accept the Asturias water rates, water regulations and rates amendment bylaw. Thank you, Councillor Morera. Is there a second? Councillor Federica. Any questions? Okay. This was 2 months ago. It was first, second, and third reading, and it was required to go for statutory approval, which was received in April. So that's why we're at this point. All right, I'll call the question. All in favor of the adoption? Thank you very much. And next is the Asturias Water District Rates and Regulations Amendment Bylaw number 1357.06. And that would be consideration for adoption as well. Mr. Zacco.
Thank you, Member Portal. So this received first three readings on the 26th day of March as well, but received approval, statutory approval from the inspector of municipalities on the 22nd of April. So likewise, before council for adoption.
Thank you very much. Same procedure as the last one. This is the water district rates. Could we have a motion on this, please? Oh, thank you. Councillor Appleby is moving this. Is there a seconder? Councillor Morera. I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you very much. Did you have a question?
I had a question.
I'm sorry. I should have, okay, we'll stop that. Go ahead with your question.
And I'm not sure if this is the exact right place to have this question, but during budget considerations, we were asked to submit items that we thought maybe could be improved, et cetera. And I put in a request to explore a certain area of the district that doesn't receive the services of the rest of the district. It's been done.
And so, Mr. Zackel, do you want to answer that question? Thank you.
Yes, so there's a number of properties within system 8 that are still under the old domestic system. And so council approved a rate reduction for those properties until they actually get twinned.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Now I will call the question on the motion. All in favor? Thank you, everybody. Okay, next is the is it Ms. Duong? The staff reports, development variance permit application. Does that speaker work? You better change it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Go ahead, please, Mr. Wong.
Thank you. So council may recall this file having been brought forward at the last regular open council meeting, and it is returning for a decision. So just quickly to go through the background once again, this property is located at 6828 89th Street. This is a request for a development variance permit application. The official community plan designation, which applies to the property's comprehensive development, and correspondingly the zoning that applies comprehensive development, specifically CD 12. The parcel is just under 2,900 square meters in size, and it is within the growth containment area as delineated within the OCP bylaw. Now specifically, the proposal is to construct a 40-unit multiple family dwelling, being a rental apartment building. The CD12 zoning, which applies to the property, does permit multiple family dwelling as a use. It does also stipulate a maximum building height of 13 meters. The height of the proposed multiple family dwelling as per the building plans is 15.8 meters, and therefore variance is required to proceed to the building permit stage. So at the last meeting of April 23rd, 2024, council did consider the CVP application and requested that the item be brought back to council with additional information, particularly as it relates to the presence of housing agreement on title, as well as the height of the parking level of the building. So in response to council's request, we are able to confirm that the housing agreement currently is registered on the title of the subject property. And it does stipulate that for a term of 10 years, the land and each housing unit is to be used exclusively for rental housing, and that not less than 10% of housing units are to be designated as below market value housing units. And then with respect to the parking level height, we did have our staff calculate the height of the parking level, and that turned out to be approximately 3.3 meters in height. The measurement was taken from the bottom of the parking level, so that's the first floor, up to just the bottom of the second floor, and we had to average that height out to reflect the height differentiations that we noticed due to the sloping of the parquet floor. And then just for council's reference, the zoning bylaw does require a minimum of 3 meters in vertical clearance for disability parking spaces. So I'll just recap quickly what conversation happened at the last meeting. We did note that the province had encouraged applying a flexible approach as it relates to the provision of small scale multi-unit housing, as well as encouraging the removal of obstacles to providing for such developments. We had noted that, while this is predominantly in relation to small scale multi-unit housing, that there is merit in applying this to other forms of housing, just really as a means to ensure adequate housing supply into the future. We had also noted that the request is an approximately 22% increase in building height. However, the proposed small scale multi-unit housing zoning updates that we had discussed previously in a committee meeting include an increased building height of 15 meters within that medium density residential zone. Additionally, we did note that the proposal is generally in keeping with that future land use direction that is directed by the zoning bylaw as well as the OCP bylaw. Particularly given that a majority of the parcels along 89th Street within this area are zoned for high density residential use, or are both potentially designated a medium high density residential. So ultimately, we do believe that it's unlikely to substantially impact the future streetscape in this area. They also indicate that the fire department had noted fire suppression challenges, particularly because the proposed building would comprise of 5 stories, which would necessitate aerial apparatus equipment to ensure adequate fire access. And we had noted that that would be proposed, or has been proposed for the 2028 budget. So just some additional considerations following our last conversation. Ultimately, the existence of a housing agreement, the use of the units for rental purposes, not seen to have any impact on the merit of the building height variance that's at play. So ultimately, that was not considered as part of our administrative assessment, which is predominantly focused on the land use planning merits of the variance request. Additionally, we do note that there were 2 written submissions that have been received from one individual with respect to the application, and amongst other things, this person's concern did speak to impacts on views. And we did want to note that an unobstructed view is not typically something that we consider to be a right. There are concerns with respect to upholding allowances for unobstructed views, as they might unreasonably impact the use and enjoyment of other properties in the surrounding area, and also conflict with other long range strategic land use objectives, such as providing adequate housing into the future. Something else that we wanted to note was that in doing a drive-by assessment of the site, we did believe that the variance would most likely impact the west of the adjacent property, which is being developed currently to a 3-story townhome development, and that site is also owned by the applicant of this particular application. Notably, Nighthawk Drive is elevated above the development site from And from what we can tell, it's approximately 7 meters up, just based on the height of the retaining wall that is currently built on the westerly property. And I just have a few pictures to show you to help illustrate what the future development could look like relative to the townhome development. So on the left-hand side, you see the adjacent townhome development, which, as I mentioned, is currently being built. And on the right is the proposed apartment building under application. So as you'll note, the apartment building is slightly set down. The top floor of the townhome would overlook the top of the apartment building. And so technically, the townhome development is higher in elevation than this proposed building would be, despite that height variance. And I do believe there's also a rendering. This was provided as part of the building permit plans for the townhome development. And that kind of gives you an idea of what this could look like. So with this in mind, we do believe that the proposed variance would likely have minimal impacts on the surrounding properties, considering that the townhomes that are currently already being developed would be higher than that building that is currently under application. So with this in mind, we are seeking council's decision on this particular application, namely whether or not to approve this development variance permit for the height variance. And we are recommending option 1. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Long. And thank you for looking into to the agreement, because of the last report, it didn't mention that it was the agreement stipulated for 10 years that the housing units needed to be used exclusively for rental, and that 10% of the housing units would be below market value. So thank you for looking into that. And the basement parking level as well. Appreciate that. So, council, what is your wish, or anybody have questions or want to make a motion? Go ahead, Councilor King.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just have a question. If this goes up, doesn't it need a flat roof for its air conditioning, or would these be peaked? I can't really understand the drawing.
As I understand it, the proposed building is predominantly flat. There's just a couple of raised areas, as you'll note, in those building plans, and those are just vaulted ceilings, to my understanding. I don't know where the air conditioning would kind of fall within that, but generally mechanical structures do have certain allowances as well. Although I would need to see
Okay.
where that is relative to the top of that vaulted area to know for sure.
Well, I guess my other comment would be by going higher, he's actually defeating this, development up top, they'll have no views left. Like when you showed that presentation. I mean, it's not kind of relevant, but it is relevant for people that want to buy the ones along the top. You're taking 3 feet away from their view. Just a comment, I guess.
Go ahead, Councilor King.
Thank you. What's the minimum required height for non-accessibility vehicles?
I don't know off the top of my head, unfortunately.
Because I think there could be a compromise here in terms of the design. It seems like the highest point elements, they're for vaulted ceilings and potentially aesthetics. What it looks like on the plans, a 60-foot height from the top of the top level ceiling to the highest point in the building. Could we potentially ask for a modification to the plans to reduce that height and then also potentially make the accessible parking outdoors instead of the inside, instead of the underground parking? Then that can reduce the height by another meter, or potentially, depending on the minimum required height. Then that kind of falls into the zone where we won't need a variance. But that's just a suggestion.
Do you know, is that a possibility? Can it be looked at, the building again?
So what you're asking about, what I understand is, are they willing to look at an alternative request? Ultimately, what's being put forward for council's consideration is this particular request of the 15.8 meters. So if if council's not, amenable to that variance, then I would say that the appropriate avenue would be to deny the variance request, and then they would have to go back to the drawing board, whether that be to come back with a separate request, or separate, review a development variance permit application, or to comply with zoning.
Thank you. That certainly makes sense. Does that make sense to you, Councillor Chong? Yeah. And my other concern is that leaving it this height is the concern of the fire department, which will not have an aerial apparatus for 4 more years. So that is another thing that we need to take into consideration. So what we need to do, I'm assuming, is go through one of the recommendations and either accept it or turn it down, and then we could do something different. Go ahead.
I just want to make a further clarifying point. We all know there's going to be a balance between increasing housing. But there's also a delicate situation where this kind of sets a precedent for the rest of 80 Street. And I want to make sure we react correctly with this variance, or we may risk a slippery slope situation. At the same time, there is room, I believe, for compromise where we can ensure that the enjoyment of the residents of Niagara is not negatively impaired by loss of view. But also at the same time, we have a 40-unit housing development with some rental units as well. So I just want to clarify that.
Absolutely, makes perfect sense. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Richard. Adding to that, I think another concern, this is the second time that there's been a significant change to this building. The previous council rejected the original proposal of 47, it's brought down to 40. These are 40 rental units. 40 rental units in a rental unit specific building, which you'll see this has never really had in modern history, and is much needed. Also understanding that they're 10% below market, I believe is the term they use on percentage of the units. It has to be reflected somewhere else in the cost of the building, which is why I think we've seen the increase in, the changes on the upper floors to reflect that height. My concern is further we clamp down on developments, like I said, the province of the especially has to build bigger, build more, what does that look like down the road when we've got other, future rental property developers wanting in, we keep trying to squish them smaller. When there's a significant need for rental property in general, see us right now.
Thank you, Councillor Frederica. I would say that I understand your point of view, but I would say that there's 40 units in here. The only difference would be that the top floor of the units would have a higher ceiling. That's the main thing that I notice. Certainly the parking level is adequate. The fact that it's long-term leasing for 10 years is a positive. And I think I agree that we need to be a little bit careful and set some reasonable compromises, because we know that there are going to be other places along 89th that are going to be looking at the same thing. So if we compromise a little bit and bring it down, we've still got the same number of housing units in this particular building. And to me, that's the important thing. Councillor Bennett first, then Councillor John.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would move option number 2, because I don't believe that for that few feet makes a difference in this building. It makes a big difference on the future of other buildings that are no longer go that high. It's also going to make a huge big cost to buy that other fire truck in 2028. We're going through a tough time right now, just in budgets, and to say we're going to do that in 4 years from now, buy a fire truck, just to make sure we can get to the top of these buildings. I don't think we're doing a good thing. I think it's basically we go number 2 and they come back to within. I just don't see this variance being that important. It's just for looks. It's going to cost us all that money just to have to get a new fire truck because it looks good. It doesn't make sense to me.
Thank you. Anybody else before? Okay, Councillor Sean, go ahead.
Counselor Bennett beat me to it. So I'll second the motion. I just think there is importance in drawing the line and making sure that developments are done properly to still maintain a certain sense of community enjoyment that we all love in the students.
Thank you. Yes, go
Madam
ahead.
Mayor, I went to speak to our building inspector, so I just wanted to, there were some questions pertaining
Thank
to the
Yes.
basement height. So it's our understanding that it's 3.3 meters, as far as height, I think that's floor to floor. Usually there's at least 0.4 to 0.6 of a meter in joists or support depths of floor, so you're down to 2.9. The required minimum clearance is 2.1. Now, however, from that 2.9, so let's say we're down to 2.9 or 2.7, roughly, depending if it's 0.4, 0.6. Then there's things like sprinklers, heaters, so any other apparatuses or mechanical equipment that's below that, it's closer to that minimum, 2.1 minimum clearance. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. There's the 3.3, you've got to minus all these additional pieces, so you're fairly close to that minimum requirement at 2.1. Does that make sense?
I think so. So we'll go through this
Yeah.
first and then we could look at.
So I'll just explain, so it's 3.3, then you minus joist, which is either 0.4 or 0.6, you're now down to 2.7 or 2.9. The minimum requirement is 2.1 meters. Now, if we're at 2.9 or 2.7. You still have to make another reduction because if you have sprinklers or heating or anything like that, like additional mechanical, the ceiling's lower. And the building code requirement is at minimum 2.1 clearance. You know, it's 3.3, there's all these pieces that reduce the minimum pure clearance. I know I didn't, does that make sense?
So what you're.
3.3.
Yeah,
The minimum it can be is 2.1, complete clearance. Okay, you have 2.1 complete clearance, but then you have sprinklers, you have the joists, everything else to.
so it sounds like there's enough room there for
There's a
sure.
tiny bit, yeah, so the
Yeah.
3.3 is good.
Yeah.
But there's not a significant amount of additional space, in the clearance in order to meet code. Like maybe, again, we don't have the details, drawings,
Okay,
but
so.
I just wanted to indicate it's not that high considering,
Okay,
you know, there's all these other pieces, you got money off that piece.
so we could, did you have something? to
Yeah,
add?
thank you, man. I would kind of disagree with what CEO said, because the architect wanted to call these variances into consideration when he made the drawings. Otherwise, why would he bring it forward? He must believe he has lots of clearance.
Go ahead.
At 3.3, there's clearance. What the CEO is trying to say is, the more we reduce, if there's a motion on the table right now, there's a conversation on the table right now. Let's reduce that by half meter or meter. Getting closer to 2.1, we're losing more and more headspace in there for the servicing that has to go in there. So if we want to reduce it to the minimum of 2.1, you're not gonna be able to drive your 4Runner in there, you're not gonna drive your pickup truck in there, you're not gonna drive your accessible vehicle in there. You might be able to get a smart car in there, you might be able to get a convertible, but the more and more you limit yourself, you're gonna be in a position where we're not gonna be able to get accessible vehicles, we're not gonna get multifamily vehicles, we're not gonna be able to access those services. Which is what, you know, to have them park outside for purposes of saving the height. It's gonna deter the type of resident that's gonna be there.
Thank you for your comments. If I just make a comment.
Yeah.
The motion on the floor has nothing to do with the height of the basement.
No, it doesn't.
So again, we're talking sidebar here about something that could be relevant and not relevant.
Okay. We've got a motion on the floor. Did you want to speak to it again? Go ahead. You can. No,
Thank
we'll
you.
vote on it.
I just want to follow up with Councilor King's last comment. My thought process is if we're able to reduce the height of the underground parking, then that would also overall reduce the height of the total building. And if we can take that off and then take off some of the aesthetic options on the top of the building, potentially that height, that sum of the height reduction may bring us into a zone where we may not need variance. That is my point. I'm just trying to see if there is room, for compromise.
I get it, there's quite a few different options here, but let's deal with the one issue that we've got on the table right now. It's been moved and seconded that we go with option 2. That the variance permit be denied. If we could deal with that first, then we could move on to the next part of it. So it's been moved and seconded. I'll call the question. All in favor? One opposed. Thank you. Now, is there a second motion that could be brought forward to look at how to deal with this situation? Maybe not, maybe they do need some kind of a variance, but is there something that we feel is important that needs to be looked at before this is brought forward again? Go ahead.
Mayor, I don't think it's our job to make that decision. We turn down the variance, now it's up to the developer to decide what he wants to do.
Anybody else have anything to say about it? Okay, thank you. So thank you, Mr. Wong. That's where it stands at the moment. Okay, and next we have a.
Sorry, can I speak to this, please?
Yeah.
I'm the developer.
I'm sorry, but the decision has already been made. And as the developer, you could certainly come in and talk to the planning department if you wanted to do something different. Thank you.
Well, I guess you've lost yourself a rental project.
Thank you. Okay, so next is the 2024 budget update, collection and transfer of taxes. Mr. Zackel.
Thank you, Mayor McCord. So requisitions from other governments have been received and budget adjustment is required to update the town's 2024 budget. These changes referenced below have no effect on 5-year financial plan. School, the requisitions $4,890,635. The Okanagan Smoke Bean Regional Hospital is $587,592. BC Assessment Authority is $116,878. Municipal Finance Authority $643, and the RDOS for the general 911 SIR, museum parcel tax, and SIR parcel tax is $1,125,951. So the recommendation before council is option number 1, that council approves the proposed budget amendments referenced in table 1.
Thank you. We'd also like to point out that we have no say on what is collected and what we're required to provide. So we have to just accept those as part of our budget, for sure. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor King.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Option number 1, approve the proposed budget adjustments.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Bennett, who's seconding that? And if there's no other questions, I'll call for the split the question out. All in favor? Thank you very much. And the grant evaluation committee recommendation, would that be? Thank you.
Madam Mayor, so before you is a report from the grant evaluation committee. They met on April 29th to discuss a grant request from the Oswego Secondary School to send a student, Tucker Maycor, to attend the National Electronics Competition in Quebec City. And the recommendation is that council approves $500 to Tucker from the Community Services Grant Program to compete at the National Electronics Competition.
Thank you very much. And Tucker presented to some of his projects this morning at Committee of the Whole. And I think he's going to be an electrical engineer very soon. He certainly seems to know what he's talking about. And he's done so well that I'm assuming he will do well at this competition as well. Councillor Chung.
I'd like to move option 1.
Thank you very much that we provide some money for him. Is there a seconder? Counselor King, so they're providing $500 from the community service grant program. All in favor? Thank you very much. Well done, Tucker. Let's hope he does well there. Decommissioning secondary suites, Mr. Zacco.
Thank you, Mayor Porto. So our report was presented to the committee of the whole on April 18th. The following motion was supported by the committee of council's consideration. And this is the committee of the whole recommended to council to adopt a milder decommissioning scenario. Submission of a statutory declaration confirming the suite has been removed from the property and that it will not be rented as a secondary suite or accessory suite. Creation of opening or openings without doors or door frames be created between the secondary suite and main dwelling unit. Utility charges will be adjusted effective the date the building inspector confirms the opening requirements are completed to their satisfaction. And that the town of Vesuvius reserves the right to do further future inspections to verify the suite remains exempt. So attached to the report is the application for secondary dwelling unit exemption. And the recommendation before council is to do option number 1, which is that council adopt the milder decommissioning scenario. Submission of a statutory declaration confirming the suite has been removed from the property and it will not be rented as a secondary suite or accessory suite. The creation of openings without doors or door frames be created between the secondary suite and main dwelling unit. C, utility charges be adjusted effective the date the building inspector confirms the opening requirements are completed to their satisfaction. And D, town reserves the right to do future inspection to verify secondary dwelling unit remains exempt.
Thank you very much. Council, what's your option in this one? Counselor Chung?
Move option 1.
Thank you very much. Is there a seconder? Counselor King? All in favor? Thank you for looking into that. That makes sense. And next we have the lease agreement, 8711 Main Street lease to the Elections BC. Mrs. Robinson.
Thank you, your worship and council. Before you is a lease agreement proposal for 8711 Main Street. Administration was approached back in March. Just inquiring if there was any town facilities that we may have available. At the time, planning and development was being moved over to the town hall, and that move has been completed. So in front of you is a recommendation for council to lease the property at 8711 Main Street to Elections BC for a 3-month term commencing on August 1st, 2024. And if council does move forward with the lease, corporate services will be posting an advertisement in the newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks, just notifying as per our legal requirements.
Thank you very much. I just had one question about this. And I'm wondering, behind that building, there were some parking places for planning staff. And they have now moved over to this building, therefore, I'm assuming they're parking over here. My recollection of Elections BC operations is that there are likely 10 to 15, maybe more people that would be working in the office for those 3 months. I'm wondering if the concerns about parking has been discussed with them. I know that they can park on Main Street, but I just think maybe it should be brought to their attention that there could be some concern, but I don't know whether that's happened or not.
Your worship, they are aware of the building. I mean, fortunately, we have our main parking lot across the street, which is the block and a half away. Here's some off-street parking, this to the west.
Behind the museum, you mean?
So yes, our parking lot is behind the museum, which is basically a block, and there's some off. Like some street parking next to the building as well, but. Yeah, they are aware of the building and its limitations and where it's at.
And I totally agree. I think it's a great use of that building for a couple of months, and it gives some needed money to the town to use. I just think that particular issue should be who's ever organizing it should maybe bring that up, that here are the possible places where you park, because there will be people coming in to ask questions of that as well. Plus, you've got the people in the art gallery, various floors. So it could be a little congested, but I think it might be a good idea to actually point out the parking lot and just suggest that there might be options there. Thank you. So, council, any questions or any options here? Go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you, Roger. I'll move option one that we released the specificity of.
Okay. For 3 months. Are you seconding that, Councilor Chong? Any other questions, any other concerns? Good. All right. So first of all, we need to go and put it in the paper, and then you will do that. Okay. All in favor of the option one? Thank you very much. That's council. That's okay. And for Mr. Risling, you have about the quarterly council strategic priorities, infrastructure strategy.
Yes, Your Worship, council started this shortly after the election to provide administration and the public with their essential objectives to incorporate not only in with our administrative thought process and budget process, but also be clear to the public as to what we're seeing as the priorities. This is reviewed quarterly. The two priority charts were reviewed at the last committee of the whole, and this is incorporating the direction between the whole. And therefore, we've asked that the attachments be approved by council.
Thank you very much. Council. You're going to, anybody want to have any say on this or move an option? Just, yes, and it would just be, is there two options here? Okay, one would be council approves the strategic priorities chart dated May 14th. And then there's the second option to approve the infrastructure strategy.
Sorry, Mayor, there's two motions.
Just,
Separate
sorry,
motions.
sorry, it's not
My
options, I
apologies.
meant
No.
motion,
Okay,
sorry.
perfect. Thank
Sorry
you.
about that. Okay, so the first motion, go ahead, Councillor Chung, you,
I'll move option one.
thank you. Is there a seconder, Councillor Federica? So let's deal with that one first. Any questions? No? All in favor? Thank you very much. And somebody going to move another option, Councillor Federica?
Option or motion number two.
Thank you. Seconder for that, Councillor Chung. All in favor of option two? Thank you very much. All right, next is the general net payroll and Sunville Arena financial accounts. As of May 14th, general cash requirements of $606,329.46. And Sunville cash requirements of $9,077.89. Net payroll accounts of $113,376.57. So could I have a motion, please, that we accept these cash requirements for information purposes? Councillor Federica, Councillor Bennett, all in favor. Thank you. And next is the building report. And I see that that we have a couple of things on the go right now. Total date in 2024 is $3,700,000. And in 2023, it was $4,127,000. I just had one question here. The Bank of Montreal, the intended use of sidewalk hoarding permit. Could somebody explain what that means? Does anybody know what that means? It just seemed a little bit unusual.
They're hoarding all their money.
They're funny. Do you know Mr. Mr. Risman? No?
No, you know, the bank is always trying to do a more major renovation. I think they were doing something to the fascia or, they had it kind of blocked off a little bit. I can find out and get back now.
Maybe it's the, where you get the cash machine, is it on, do you know?
Well, that's,
Mr. Rodriguez?
I believe it must refer to the fact that they had closed off the front end, they had closed that area off with a plywood structure during the renovations, because they were removing the windows, so I think it's on the sidewalk.
Oh, I see, so that's what it was. It was just a permit to close it off, because they have been opened and I've been in there. And I'm assuming everything's done. Okay, it seems like an odd format, and I wasn't quite sure what it meant. Okay, any other concerns? On this? All right, we need a motion then, please, to accept the building permit for the month of April. Thank you, Councillor King, Councillor Bennett, all in favor. Thank you. And next we have proposed OCP amendments. And that would be Ms. Wong. Thank you. That's for the short-term housing. Okay, thanks. Go ahead, Ms. Wong.
The OCP one, right? Okay.
Just rolling right into some of the background, as council may be aware, in late November 2023, a suite of amendments was made to the Local Government Act with respect to the provision of small scale multi-unit housing. As part of these amendments, the Local Government Act now requires that local governments consider quote unquote applicable guidelines made by the minister when developing or adopting a zoning bylaw to implement the new small scale multi-unit housing requirements. And the applicable guidelines that the legislation refers to is the Provincial Policy Manual and Site Standards document, which was released in December 2023. So in addition to speaking to the zoning regulations, the manual does also refer to other considerations that local governments may wish to take with respect to development permit areas. The council has been made aware of these development permit area considerations at previous committee meetings. In particular, on February 13th, 2024, the committee of the whole meeting, staff did present quite a lengthy presentation regarding proposed amendments with respect to the various residential policies within the town's official community plan bylaw, as well as existing development permit areas and map schedules in that bylaw. And subsequently, on April 9th, 2024, the committee had resolved to initiate various amendments to the official community plan bylaw, as well as the land use procedures amendment bylaw and the municipal ticket information bylaw. So this presentation and the item on the agenda today seeks to further that direction. And I'll just run through some of the key amendments because it's quite lengthy in nature. With respect to the official community plan amendment bylaw, that is the subject of this item. This predominantly relates to ensuring alignment with the small scale multi-unit housing requirements, as well as the provincial policy manual considerations. The proposed amendments include a number of revisions to the low to medium density residential and medium to high density residential designations within the official community plan. Namely, this would replace the low to medium density residential designation with the low density residential designation. The medium to high density residential designation would be replaced with the medium density residential designation. Additionally, the proposed amendments include updated policy statements which speak to supporting a number of different housing types and residential densities in order to align with the density requirements under the new amendments to the Local Government Act. It also proposes to repeal the Southeast Meadowlark, Hillside and Foreshore and Lake development permit areas, and also includes a number of revisions to the multifamily, mixed use and commercial, industrial, environmentally sensitive and riparian development permit area guidelines and map schedules. With respect to the amendments to the land use procedures bylaw, the proposal predominantly relates to transferring application requirements which currently live in the OCP bylaw instead to the land use procedures bylaw. That's typically where local government bylaws would speak to various application requirements and seem to be a more appropriate spot for that. Now, with respect to the municipal ticketing information amendment bylaw, this proposes to include new offense categories as well as associated fines for the failure to obtain a development permit and failure to comply with the condition of a development permit. And with this in mind, we are seeking council's direction with respect to these amended bylaws, namely whether to give first and second reading to the official community plan amendment bylaw. And to give first, second, and third reading to the land use amendment procedures amendment bylaw and the municipal ticket information amendment bylaw. The kind of second part of that option as well would be then to send the OCP amendment bylaw forward to a public hearing. And I do note that in the report, it does reference a date of May 28th, 2024, which is a bit too close to be able to undertake adequate notifications under the Local Government Act. So I did want to point that out. The more likely date would then be June 11th, 2024. And our recommendation would be then to give the initial readings to those amended bylaws and proceed to a public hearing on June 11th.
Thank you very much, Ms. Duong. Can I just ask and this is apparently going to can be done all as one recommendation, but the OCP amendment bylaw be read a first and second time, and the land use be read a first, second, and third time. That seems a little confusing. And is that because we need to go to a public hearing on the OCP one?
That's correct, yes. It's
Okay.
just the OCP amended bylaw that requires a public hearing.
So it's exactly how it's printed, other than the date for the public hearing would be changed to June the 11th. Does that make sense? If you got that, that's okay. So council, go ahead, Councillor John.
Thank you. We had just extended the exemption. How would that affect this particular issue?
So to my understanding, it doesn't necessarily impact this particular set of amendments. Ultimately, with the official community plan bylaw, that sets out a 20-year kind of future, path, right, for the local government under a land use. So regardless of the extension, whether it be approved or not, we will have to eventually meet the small scale multi-unit housing requirements in the legislation.
So council, what is your pleasure on this one? Councillor Patrica?
We're going to move option one, that council, the OCP amendment bylaw, be read for a second time, and that planning procedures. The MTI bylaw be read first, second, and third. Council consider the process of the report. And the local government act council is considered OCP amendment review or bylaw 1305 in conjunction with its financial and cool waste management plans. And that whole thing, everything else continues. And that's after notice of a public hearing, works with the governor.
On June, yeah, okay, good. So we got it moved and seconded.
Seconded, sorry. Oh, thank you.
Councillor Chong. Any other concerns, questions? Okay, all in favor? Thank you very much. And you're here for another one, Mrs. Chuang. That would be the OCP and zoning bylaw amendment application. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I do have a presentation for this.
Oh, sorry. That was me.
So this file is number Z23-06, and it does relate to proposed amendments to the official community plan and zoning bylaws. Just a bit of context about the property. The subject property is located at 5801 Oleander Drive. The official community plan designation which applies to the property is medium to high density residential, and the property is zoned medium density residential, and that's the R6 zone. The parcel is approximately 831 square meters in size, and the property is located within the growth containment area as delineated in the OCP bylaw. Currently, the property does contain a single family dwelling and an accessory building, which is in the form of a detached garage. Proposal at hand is to develop the property to a 2-family dwelling, so a duplex, and you can see that that would be undertaken by effectively adding an addition to the existing single family dwelling on the property. So the medium to high density residential OCP designation that applies to the property is typically applied to lands which have been identified for future expanded residential development. This will typically take place in the form of plexes as well as other multiple family dwellings such as townhouses and apartments. The medium density residential zoning that applies to the property permits multiple family dwelling as a use, and also provides formal allowances for pre-existing single family dwellings and 2-family dwellings. However, it does not currently permit the construction of any new 2-family dwellings. So with that in mind, the applicant has requested to amend the OCP designation of the property from medium to high density residential to low to medium density residential, and also to amend the zoning of the property from medium density residential down to low density residential. That would be the R3 zone. Some considerations when making this assessment regarding the proposal. We do note that the official community plan bylaw has policies which relate to the medium to high density residential designation, particularly that speak to permitting various housing types, including flex developments. However, the applicable medium density residential zoning does not permit the development of the site to a duplex, which is contrary to what the official community plan designation policies allow for or speak to. Some other considerations to make are that the official community plan bylaw generally discourages residential development which require downzoning, and this will be the case of this proposal, and developments which do not take full advantage of allowable residential developments. However, we do note that the property is seen to have a number of limitations. Particularly, you'll note that the property is quite narrow as you look at the middle of the property. Additionally, site development is pretty limited due to the existence of a streamside protection and enhancement area that is associated with the Cius Lake. And additionally, there is a slightly more restrictive building height provision that applies to this property, whereas other properties which are within the R6 zone, you could typically build up to 10 meters. Properties specifically on the east side of Old Leander Drive are only permitted a 9-meter building height allowance. So with all these factors kind of taken together, the property is quite limited in terms of what you can build out on site. Additionally, recent provincial direction has emphasized the importance of local governments applying a more flexible approach when we make land use decisions, particularly as it relates to new housing developments. And they also have spoken to removing obstacles to a site-full provision of additional housing units. The current R6 zoning does require future residential development on site to effectively consist of a minimum of 3 dwelling units. And when you consider the context of the site and its limitations, the existing zoning would actually hinder any future expansion of residential density on that property as is. On the other hand, we do recognize that the intent of the existing R6 zoning and that medium to high density residential official community plan designation may have been to encourage lot consolidation, as this would allow for a larger scale residential development, and that the OCP bylaw also discourages downzoning. However, in summary, we do, as mentioned, the existing R6 zoning is not fully consistent with the medium to high density residential OCP designation, as it doesn't permit a duplex development and may ultimately restrict the ability of increased density on the property due to existing site limitations, as well as restrictive building height provisions. With that in mind, we are asking for council's direction as it relates to this file, namely whether or not to give first and second reading to the proposed amended bylaws and proceed to a public hearing on June 11th. And we are recommending option 1.
Thank you very much. So my understanding is that the house that's there would be turned into a duplex and the garage at the end would stay the same. because you cannot drive down there. There isn't enough room to drive down a car. Is that correct?
So as I understand it, the addition would be added onto the single family dwelling, but the garage would actually be removed from the property.
Go ahead, Councillor King.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. If this gets passed and they're joined, it's sort of not kind of such a narrow in the middle. There'd be enough room on each side, or would they have to come back for a variance?
Is a question in regards to whether a side setback would be
Yeah.
required. Based on the plan that we reviewed, I don't believe a side setback would be required in this case.
Go ahead, Councillor Bennett.
I would move option one.
And are included in option one, it says that the public hearing set for June 11th. Is that all right, considering we just moved another public hearing to that? We could do them both on that June 11th?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So moved and seconded that we go ahead with the recommendation for a second and proceed to a public hearing. All in favor? Thank you, that's carried. And next is the administrative fees and charges amendment bylaw. Mr. Brownstein.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a housekeeping item. This is to adjust the administrative fee and charge bylaw to include the EV charging station at our park. One point to note is unfortunately, we were not able to do a complex rate structure, so that will be a general flat rate of $2 per hour for charging.
Thank you, because that's what we had asked for the last time, 2 hours free and then continue on. Okay, do you have a question, Councillor Chong?
Oh, I'm just gonna move on in one.
Oh,
There you go.
that was easy, and Councillor Poderick is seconding that. Sounds fine with me too, all in favor. Thank you very much, and, now we're on to off-street parking, is that you too, here? No. Oh, Mr. Zackel's doing this one, okay, go ahead, Mr. Zackel.
Thank you, Mayor McCord. So before council's off-street public parking amendment bylaw 1274.06. The town owns a boat trailer parking lot at 6901 Main Street. Purpose of this property is to provide an area for boat trailer parking to ease the parking burden on town streets. In 2018, town installed paid parking meters in the lots, which brought in revenues of $43,100 in 2023 and $47,270 in 2022. The boat trailer parking lot has considerable staff time spent on enforcement, administration, and upkeep. The previous amendment to the boat trailer parking lot had fees set until 2023. The current daily rate is $10. Then weekly rate is $60, monthly rate is $250. Many municipalities do not offer a service such as ours. The staff were able to find daily rates for the city of Penticton and city of Kelowna, which are listed below. To ensure the town can recover some of the costs for staff time, the rates in Schedule B have been increased by 5% for the years 2024, 2025, 26, and 27. The revised daily rate is being proposed for 2024 at $10.50. As a comparison, the city of Penticton is currently charging $10.20. The city of Kelowna is charging $11. So the recommendation before council is option number 1. That off-street public parking amendment bylaw 1274.06 2024 be read for a second and third time.
Thank you very much. Councillor King?
Yeah. Question, would it have any impact on the weekly or monthly rates? Would they change also?
They would all be increasing by 5%.
It's on the little schedule, the very last page. Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Bennett.
I would move option one.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Is there a second? Councillor Chong? Any other questions? Okay, all in favor? Yes? No? I didn't see it. I was.
No, that's all, yeah.
Sorry. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. That's carried. Next, the museum parcel tax. Amendment by law consideration of adoption. So, this would. Going on page 143, yeah. Alrighty. The museum parcel tax bylaw was read a first, second, and third time on the 23rd of April, the 24th. So we're just looking today to have this adopted. Can I have a motion, please, to that effect? Councillor Bennett, Councillor Chong, all in favor. Thank you very much. And the serious tax rates bylaw, consideration of adoption is that the tax rate on lands and improvements to municipal library? Okay, so that one was read first, second, and third time on April the 23rd, 2024, and we're looking for the adoption of this. Is there someone who would like to make that motion? Councillor King, Councillor Poderica, all in favor. Thank you, everyone. And the next, that's it. The next is a meeting report. And I was at a meeting on the April the 24th in Vernon, the Okanagan Lake Watershed Collaborative Leadership Table. And so I'm asking to have this this report. Oh, okay, I'll let somebody else deal with it. Okay, Councillor King and Councillor Poderica that approved the $100 per diem. All in favor. Thank you, everyone. And now it's reports from the committee of the whole and committee. So from May 14th, 2024, it was moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Poderica, that the committee of the whole recommend to council that an application to request an extension to the SSMUH, the housing compliance deadline, be submitted to the Minister of Housing in relation to those lands comprised within the town of Vesuvius, and that the recommended timeline extension be 5 years. So I just need to have that brought out of committee of the whole, and I'm wondering if we could have a motion. Councillor King, Councillor Poderica, doing this again? Okay, thanks. All in favor. And the second one, it was moved by Councillor Poderica, seconded by Councillor Bennett, that the committee of the whole recommend to council that the OBW be advised. There's a long list here of all of the things. Do I have to read it all? No. Okay, it's all there. That the town of Vesuvius supports the draft sewerage facilities assistance grant terms of reference as subject to several different things. And with the exception of the 1 hectare requirement and recommended additional research to ensure it considers and incorporates the spirit of the provincial guidelines. So we need a motion that is brought out of committee of the whole. Councillor Chong, Councillor Bennett, all in favor. Thank you, everyone. And next is the report from the CAO, Mr. Risman.
Thank you, Your Worship. A few things going on, as you heard earlier this morning, the planning development department has moved to the town office building later last week, so we went through a transition process there, but hopefully ultimately will provide some efficiencies and some opportunities to cover the front office a little bit easier. We have our Sonora Center is going to be closed Saturdays for the next month or so, at least until June 8th. Of course, we have some vacancies there, and so we're having problems filling place with bums and seats to look after the building, so we have no choice but to close the building for a while. Unfortunately, our main boat launch experienced some damage, and we closed it yesterday, and we'll be, I was just checking, Eames is almost gonna be going out here fairly soon. With some divers coming in next week, and then so we'll determine how we can proceed as far as next steps in repairing that boat launch. We'll do it as quickly as we possibly can, and we're heading into the busy boat season, so we'll do what we can to expedite that process. Just want to reiterate it again that there's many park signs being installed, almost all the lettering is being completed, and I just want to reemphasize that those signs were purchased out of grant money. Couple of upcoming events, we've got the pop-up roller rink at Sun Bowl Arena on May 25th, and we got Go By Bike Week, June 3rd, June 9th. There's many summer programs being in the organizing stage, and we're definitely gonna still continue with swimming lessons, the Cactus Kids Day Camp and Tykes Camp this upcoming summer, so stay tuned. Still having an issue with dogs at large, so I guess another reminder for people to make sure their gates are closed when they go to work in the morning. That is consuming a significant amount of time within Miss Robinson's area. Other things going on, we have our sewer notices May 3rd, and obviously for the next few days, we're going to have property tax notices. New businesses in town, Sun Hills Riding Center, Soft Parts Companion Services, Local Amigos Exteriors, Paul Hollis Mobile Automotive Repair. We've got those Cafe, Allen Fire and Safety Services, Gigabyte Security Solutions, and Let's Take Now. So a lot of new businesses opening up here next little bit. Operational services, see everybody out in the streets, they're looking great. They continue with mowing and making everything look great. And I think one of the positive things this year is we were able to recruit 3 laborers. They haven't had that for a while, so we have at least some staff to provide some support during the summer months. We've had a few water main breaks, 4 in the agricultural irrigation system and 1 on Hotel Road this past month. As everybody knows, we've had some vacancies. Dave Gordon is, officially our acting public works superintendent, so he's filling in there for a while. And received some news last week. Unfortunately, another resignation. Mr. Bronstein has an opportunity and is leaving the municipality. This is going to be his last meeting with council. He's here a few more weeks, but he's got some other things on council meetings, so I just wanna thank him personally. I don't think the community knows just what an asset he is. He's the things that he's done, even since my arrival here, has been incredible, and I'm really sad to see him go, but I'm happy for his opportunity, and yeah, we'll be advertising. There's going to be some massive shoes to fill. I wish the public knew the experience and the hard work that he has done, and the inroads he's made on a lot of issues with regards to public works. Conclude my report.
Thank you, Mr. Rising, and I echo that, Mr. Brownstein, you're going to be missed for sure. Okay, go on.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Now, you mentioned the signs around town. I don't know the factual, I haven't got on and checked it out. It was brought to my attention, one of the signs, the writing's all crooked, it's not straight. Cottonwood Drive sign.
That hasn't come to my attention, but if you can provide the information and we can take a look.
Thank you.
Okay, so could we have a motion, please, to accept the CAO report? Councillor Sean, Councillor Bennett, all in favor. Thank you very much. So we'll look for council reports. Councillor Sean.
Thank you. It's been busy since last council meeting. All of us attended the Southern Interior Local Governments Association convention or conference. It was last week. I just want to share a few tidbits from there. We did have a presentation regarding the future of wildfires in BC. And in 2023, in Canada, the wildfires produced 2 billion tons of CO2, which was about 23% of the world's entire wildfire emissions. And if you want to compare the 2 billion, our total carbon emissions for all other sources is 670 million. So it goes to show that with climate change and with the current drought considerations, we need to take somewhat proactive approaches to wildfires. And then we also attended the tour of the Turning Capital Center, beautiful facility. And I think the big takeaway was that a lot of local community organizations kind of banded together with the city of Kamloops to bring this project forward. And I'm hoping to take some of the pearls and lessons learned from their experience potentially forward towards Jarrow Beach when we do the charrette and look forwards to development of that area. Mainly because I think the aquatic center is fairly low on our list at this point. So, and then lastly, great lecture on intergovernmental relations and advocacy for local government. So taking a lot of strategies from that presentation to better advocate for our community with provincial leaders, ministers, and be more successful with grant funding, even more so than we already have. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Councillor Chong. Councillor Federica.
Thank you, Your Worship. April 27th, I attended actually with Councillor Sue's chapter center fundraiser. April 30th to May 3rd, I was at Silga. A couple of us had a bit of a different itinerary. So actually, my first day was spent with folks at the Rocky Mountain Ear and the economic impact they have on the region, both in how they source their products. I believe they said they were the second largest wine seller in British Columbia, or buyer in British Columbia for Kelly. Secondly, I think it's Rogers region. So they, buy a lot of local on the wine, a lot of their products. They bring showcasing local food products, everything else that they source, and their local labor and the league and hundreds of staff that they employ seasonally. Not only just in British Columbia, but in the United States as well as they've expanded and grown. The next day we had our opening ceremony for the first time on Indigenous territory, so we were fortunate to come to the Slavic First Nation and have a keynote from one of their band counselors. And then a few of us were fortunate to visit the Kamloops Residential School for a very somber but emotional tour. It was really interesting to tour the facility and hear some of the stories. And as well as tour the Kamloops Nation and their properties. And then wrapped up May, visited some counseling and the Canadian Alcohol Use Disorder hosted a one-day seminar in Oliver last week. I attended. Just visit some working on some projects right now, just to help with the stigma, help with the resources available to those that do suffer from alcohol use disorders and how that has changed in terms of treatment options over the last couple of years. We're unique in this Okanagan, specifically in South Okanagan. We actually lead in hospitalizations, and the Okanagan as a whole, and Interior Health actually lead in the province in terms of licensed establishments and consumption sales because of the uniqueness of the region and the amount of wine produced and beer produced in the region. So that unfortunately, confuses some of the numbers, but the hospitalization side of it does have an impact on financially in terms of healthcare system, in terms of policing, in terms of other costs to the taxpayer in general. So a really good learning opportunity from that day, and that's my report.
Thank you very much. Councillor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you heard, we all attended SOGA. I guess we all brought back a different perspective and we all went to different presentations. One was there was 44 resolutions made and 40 of them got passed. And I'm happy to say that Mr. Chung's resolution that he brought forward actually got passed. So hopefully it'll move on to the UBCM. Also, there was a presentation, the most up-to-date presentation on rental units in the province, that legislation. So that was also very informative. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also attended Sylvan. I got quite a few notes here, but I have a real sore throat, but I started coughing, so I'm just gonna say the same as John.
Thank you. Thank you. So, yeah, it's been 3 weeks since our last meeting, and usually it's every 2 weeks, but occasionally this happens. There've been a lot of things that we've done. Certainly, I was at Sylva as well, and you've heard a lot of the things that we went to, and it's just good to talk to people in this region and find out what their important projects are, and it's always worthwhile. But on the 24th of April, I was in Vernon for the day at the Okanagan Lake Watershed Collaborative Leadership Table. And there were a lot of chiefs and native bands that were there, plus a lot of mayors, and we talked about how water in the valley is foundational. Working together on valley water issues. Okanagan Basin Water Board has several things there. They were all involved there. One valley, one water. Really important that we work together because we share all of this. And one of the speakers who said, "Did you know that the water in the valley it's important to not only the berries at the top of the valley, but also to the fish. And the berries at the top of the mountain depend on the fish." And we were rather surprised at that. And he said, the salmon swim in the water, the eagles take the salmon out of there and they fly up into the trees. And then they fertilize the berries. They're at the top of the hill, and the bears eat the berries. And so we were quite fascinated with this thought. But that was certainly one of the things. This is the second meeting that I've been at for this group, and we've agreed that it's really important for all of us to work together. And we have another meeting in the beginning of September. The following day, I was with the April 25th, the tourism master plan for the town of Vesuvius, and we looked at what are the big issues in tourism here, what are the downfalls, what can we work on, and that will be coming out soon. On the April the 27th, I went to the Blue Barn grand opening. That's the pet shop over in the plaza, and wow, that's pretty amazing. What they have in there, all kinds of pet supplies for every different kind of pet, plus lots of pets for sale in there. And one of the things that was in there, they have a dog washing station. And because of my concern with water, I said, how much water does it use? My first thought. Anyway, it's a great place to go if you have pets, if you need to buy you want a hamster or a bird or fish or anything, it's in there. It was a really nice event. It was the grand opening. And then I went to the Desert Center that day, which was the 25th anniversary of the Desert Center, and they had their opening day as well. Regional District emergency preparedness is a big thing right now. We can certainly understand that because we can see fires up in northern BC and the fact that we're getting into the summer situation with droughts and with hot weather and a lot more tourists. So everybody is suggesting, and I suggest this to all our residents here, make a plan just in case you have to. We don't expect to have fires, but you never know. We've had heat domes, floods, droughts, fires, and everything. And a grab and go bag. And there is one on the Regional District website. I have one, I made one for both of my children who lived in Vancouver. And it was a backpack. I've got a first aid kit in there and a flashlight and some candies and some a knife and a lot of different things. And it's really handy to have, and I have one too. I keep it at my back door. You also need to make sure you've got some food in there, some water, change of clothes, a blanket, maybe a copy of your important papers. It's just a good plan these days. And then, I was also at Silga, of course, and on May the 7th, I was in Vernon for Kelowna at Okanagan Basin Water Board, meeting with the Water Stewardship Council, and they're the sort of academic arm of the OBWB, and so we were looking at a 4-year strategic plan, how we could work together and continue to write letters about invasive mussels and invasive species. And I want to say that the Okanagan Basin Water Board has a couple of really good plans. One is don't move a mussel. In other words, be aware of those types of concerns that we would have, and also make water work. And that means for everybody. So making sure that you follow the water restrictions in your area, cutting down on water, trying to use water to the best way that you can and use less. And so that's really important. And then I was at, of course, in this time, another emergency RDOS meeting. And on May the 13th was yesterday, I was supposed to be on an emergency management and climate readiness meeting with Minister Mon, Minister King, but they decided to postpone it because a lot of their of the staff is working on helping people up in Fort Nelson. So May the 12th to the 18th was Local Government Awareness Week. And there's lots of information about that. And last Friday, I went for a visit to the SIR facility, which is here in Osoyoos. That's the sterile insect release. We all pay for it on our taxes. It's a way of sterilizing moths so that the codling moth could be changed and there would be less codling moth problems. This facility hires 25 people from the area. You can't just go in the door and say, I'd like to have a tour, because they have to be very careful with how they, what they allow in there. There are sterile places. There is, they have to be very, very clean. They have lights on and off to regulate the moths, and then they take them out in dune buggies or, golf carts, and they spread them in the orchards. And so I asked how often do you do that? So from April until September, they raise the moths and they take them out and do it once a week on each property. It was quite fascinating. It's the one of a kind in the world, this facility. And I did ask if I made arrangements, could I bring council up sometime, because I think council will be really interested in this. And they did say that we could work on that. I think it's quite fascinating. So those are the things that we've been working on, and I just want to again say thank you very much to Mr. Brownstein, who has done an amazing job for the last 6 years. I think it is 5 or 6 years of helping us get things on track, and through his thoughtfulness that we've been able to look at water issues and water master plan, wastewater master plan. So we thank you very much, Mr. Brownstein, and we're going to miss you. So I'm going to move into the in-camera section now. And pursuant to section 91 of the community charter, a part of the council meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered relates to one or more of the following. Section 91C, labor relations, other employee relations. 91E, acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements, if the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. Could I have a motion, please, to go? Thank you, Councillor Councillor Chong, Councillor Bennett, all in favor. Thank you very much.
So we're doing-